So let's start again. Take
two.
Take two.
Welcome to the kiwimana Bay.
Hi, this is episode 158 of our beekeeping show, Don't Blow My Buzz.
In this show, we answer questions when we have the sound on about controlling varroa mites, people allergic to bees, and how to find queens in your hive.
Yeah, and maybe any other questions that you have. We're open to hear them.
And everyone's got sound. Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome.
Welcome to the special live show from our bubble to you during this COVID-19. Okay, let's have a bit of an intro who we are. We are Gary
and Margaret.
We are kiwimana, and kiwimana are beekeepers from the hills of the Waitaki Ranges on the wild west coast of Auckland in the North Island of New Zealand.
Yes, we build and sell beekeeping equipment and bees, provide beekeeper services and education.
That's right, we do. And every time a new subscriber joins our beekeeping list, they get asked, what's your biggest problem? Our biggest problem is webcams, but we've sorted that.
And sound.
We
sorted that.
In this show, we endeavour to answer some of your burning questions. Thanks for joining us today. And this show has been made by the help of our supporters. And the show notes are kiwi.bz/158. Okay, let's play some music. Okay, this week we catch up with Jerry Burbridge from the Northern Bee Books about a great book. We'll just flick over to this advert.
Particularly, I've got a book of honey by Eva Crane. Eva was established the International Bee Research Association. She was quite famous. I mean, when she died in 2007, the New York Times said that she had written some of the most important books on bees and beekeeping ever. Her book of honey is a must for anybody who's serious about understanding honey. Not only does it describe how and why bees make honey, but it also describes in detail the constituents and characteristics. There's also a chapter on the use of honey in the kitchen and mead making. It's a jolly nice book and is now once more available from us.
Oh, fantastic. Sounds like a good book, because I know there was an article on the in the recent magazine about Eva Crane, because she just passed away a while back. So yeah. So hi, Mum. Okay, now we're going to go to the questions. So we've got some questions here, but we'll take questions from the chat room soon as well. And the first question is: the constant battle to keep hives free from varroa mites, which feeds off bees and causes nasty things like deforming virus and paralysis. I don't think you have them in New Zealand. And that's from Pat Morby. Unfortunately, we do have them in New Zealand, don't we, Margaret?
Yeah.
So we still have to do it. I think constant battle would be true. You need to treat. You need to make sure you've got you're checking the mite levels. And what's your thoughts?
Well, yes, we confirm that unfortunately they are in New Zealand, and they originally were more in the North Island, and New Zealand's made of two major large islands, and it has moved down into the South Island and mostly down the whole island. So some of our beekeepers from the lower part of North Island are still learning about varroa. However, in saying that, varroa are something that is a constant threat, and if you don't keep an eye on them and treat accordingly, I mean, we ultimately don't want to have to treat it all, but varroa, because of the way that the varroa are, they come in on a bee that's been foraging and then enter into the hive, and then they start to move around the hive, and if there's any cells that are still open, and that just before they have this instinct that they know that that the cells are going to be capped, the varroa will walk into the cell and ensconce itself in there, and that's where it will start mating And the first thing that, it's usually a female varroa that goes into the cell. She produces a male, and then they mate. And this is all going on with the inside the cell, hiding in there. And if you get, 15 or 16 or 20 in there, and you've got them in your cells, then you're going to get a lot of bees that are emerging with the deformed wing virus. And it can also cause other issues once they're ensconced, and causing issues. The bees can spread the virus, which is transferred through the parasitic nature of the varroa mite, and that affects, it eats the virus itself. Seems to be, latest findings are that it's affecting the fat inside the abdomen of the bee, and then that means that they transfer that to other bees. So it's an awful thing, and monitoring is one thing we do. We use mesh bottom boards to do that, and we do natural mite fall. What are the other ways?
And sugar shaking with icing sugar. And we've got a video on our YouTube channel about that. So, have a look at that.
And it's something that you really have to get a handle on. So usually when someone says to me they've got deformed wing virus, there's usually an 8-week period that they have to go through to really get on top of what's happening, especially if they've got bees that are still foraging. That's the nature of varroa, and it's a murdering bastard.
So the key is monitoring, treating. Don't do the fingers, people. So they're the key things, aren't they?
Yeah, monitoring and treating. If you want to be treatment free, then that's a whole other conversation. And we are not brave enough to do that. At this point, we're trying to grow genetics. So keep our older queens and breed from those surviving colonies that have made it through winter. So yeah, there's different ways to deal with it. There's one where you just leave them to die, and whatever survives
that's called the James Bond effect, isn't it? Live and let die. No, really, that's what they call it.
I thought it was the Beatles or something.
No.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. We've got a question here from Phil. I'm yet to get my first hive, aiming for the next one in spring. I suppose one of my potential problems is my wife thinks she's allergic to bees. If this ends up being the case, I may have to do my beekeeping at a location other than my backyard, which will blow my buzz. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Phil.
Yeah.
Well, that's a problem, but you might find if you've ever collected bee swarms, everybody in the world is allergic to bees, especially people that ring up about bee swarms. Is that fair to say?
Amen.
So, honestly, I would probably get her to get tested, Phil, because you don't want to risk it. And I would do that. And if she is allergic, really, then I would put them somewhere else, and make sure you don't wash your bee suit in the normal family wash. Have a separate wash for that.
Yeah.
But get her to go to the hospital. I mean, not at the moment because we're all in lockdown. And
Yeah. I think my view is that the potential problems are that if your wife gets stung and she reacts, it's an anaphylactic if she is completely allergic. And so you should have an EpiPen available to deal with that immediate situation. Or she has her own suit, but I can't imagine her walking around the property wearing a bee suit because she is allergic. So, I think the idea of having it in another apiary is okay, but if you're just learning, it's really nice to have your bees near you, because then it makes it easier for you to manage them. And the first, 4 years are pretty full on, really, I reckon.
Well, I've seen people recently going shopping with bee suits on, so I can't see the problem of wearing a bee suit around the house. Or was that just New Zealand? And I've got some feedback here from Bjorn. He says that...
Hi, Bjorn.
He says he went treatment free and lost 9 out of 13 hives. That's no good.
Ooh.
I think Bjorn's in... Are you in Belgium, Bjorn? I can't remember.
Yes.
Belgium? Yeah. That's shocking. So that's a high ratio. But what are you going to do this year, Bjorn? Tell us what you're going to do, and we'll get back to you about that. And we'll move on to the next question. How do I find the queen? This is from Colin Lynn. Well,
I have a lot of ideas about this one.
I've got lots of ideas too. It's usually a good idea to find the frame with the eggs on, but yesterday we did some wintering down. We did a video about that with some robbing bees as well, but Margaret doesn't think they're robbing. But we couldn't find the queen in one hive, eh? We found some eggs, but we couldn't find a queen, so we're not sure what we're going to do with those guys.
Okay, so just to add a bit of context to that situation that we went through yesterday, it was a bit of a panic situation in the sense that...
I'm doing effects now.
Okay. In the sense that we were trying to get everything done in a hurry. Okay? So that's the first thing. Plan it on a good day, good weather. Make sure you have equipment that can help you, like a frame holder or something like that. And so if we had been a lot calmer yesterday and we didn't have bad weather coming on, we probably would have found the queen. But the problem is this time of the year, because in New Zealand we're coming to winter, we're in the last few weeks of autumn, that the bees sometimes decide that they're not going to lay any eggs. Okay, so that effectively the queen has a brood break, which happens in a lot of countries with really cold climates. So the thinking is that just be really calm and just make the decision that this inspection is going to be a find the queen inspection. So you have your goal, have your equipment there, have a spare box if you don't have a frame holder. And so what you do is, this is what I do, is I have my hive set up with 10 frames, Langstrath and Hoffman frames, wooden ones, and I always detach them with our hive tool so that they're not all joined together, and then I move them along. So there's plenty of space because we have 33 millimeter width of the frame. So there's a gap that I have on both sides, which I love because it gives me the room. So I always pull that out, and I pull out the very first one because generally that one is not with brood. It's generally honey or nectar. So I take that one out first and put it on my hive stand, and then I hold the, I have the space so I can move the next frame along, creating space to pull it out. And then I have lots of room to check. If that one's also a honey frame, I'm happy to put that onto the frame holder as well. So therefore, all the brood frames I like to keep in the box. So then I go to frame 3 and I detach it because we have lots of propolis in New Zealand in our hives, and I move it along again. Then I lift it up and I do it very quietly. I do not shake the bees off. Yesterday,
I like shaking the bees off.
Gary shook all the bees off, and because we're in a high stress situation, I don't know whether the queen could have been on that frame. So of course I reacted in my...
Sorry, let's go.
I reacted in my way. I panicked. So therefore I don't know if the queen is still there.
Yeah.
But we did see eggs in both the colonies. So the other thing that might have happened is that she stopped laying because there was a lot of varroa issues. The bees were actually well formed and everything, but I think they had some varroa issues. I should have treated them or monitored them more than I did. So finding the queen is a frame by frame, one step. Look at each frame, keep the brood frames in the box and just pull them towards you so you keep having the space. So you need to be calm and just do it slowly, slowly. Shaking the bees off is not a good idea when you are trying to learn how to find her. Then you could mark her if you want to. That sometimes helps. We don't mark our queens, and I can usually spot them because I think with experience your eyes actually start to learn. The brain understands what you're trying to see. So trust that it's a process. The first thing you want to know that there's definitely a queen there, and that's generally when there's new eggs. So spotting the queen, patience, patience, patience.
And we heard that from Bjorn. He says he's in Belgium and he was allergic. So that sort of goes back to Phil's questions.
Yeah.
And he's had immune therapy to stop being allergic. So that's a great idea.
That's a really good idea, and we know of one of our beekeeper friends. She actually does a lot of testing and helps people with allergies. So there is a set process for that, and then you become more, tolerant. Your body becomes more tolerant of the things that you're allergic to, but it is a process. So that's a really good point, Bjorn.
Okay, let's move on to the next section where we have questions from you guys, the live audience. So we've got Tony Eckstein.
Oh, I got your email about wintering down.
Yeah, and he's going, when do you put the winter honey supply box on top of the brood box for the bees? Winter supply using your hive mat with a slot in it. Oh, that's a Margaret question.
I'm sorry, Tony. I did start writing an email and something happened on the way. And I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. But with wintering down...
Naughty. Sorry.
Oh, because I'm sorry. This is all new to me, I'll tell you that now. Okay, so wintering down is the first thing I suggest is that you start wintering down at the end of the season before the winter you're planning for. So you go through and you do a full assessment of the hive. Then 2 weeks later, you go back in and the first inspection you did was a full assessment, going through every single frame so you know exactly what's there. Because when you're wintering down, you need to know how many brood frames are there and what is being used. Okay? So that's the first thing. The assessment tells you how everything is just before you start to plan for that next season. So you would start doing that at the end of summer and then work into the beginning of autumn to see the changes. Then when you go in that second time, you can start to see if the brood is reducing or she's changing her laying pattern. So ideally what you want to do in the end is that you want to see the change in brood and laying. Then you want to count how many brood frames there are. So generally, I don't know because you're in Tauranga, that your temperatures may be slightly different from us. So therefore, you may have things going on that we aren't having here. But at the moment, what we're finding is that our colonies have gone down to about 6 frames of brood at the moment. On those weaker hives, they only had 4.
About 4, eh?
Yeah, so it was quite low, but there's so many bees. So we know that they're healthy enough. So what we do is we put all the brood into that bottom box, and then we put a couple of frames of honey and nectar on the sides of that, assuming that you've got pollen frames on the outside. So you have your brood, and then if you've got any frames with pollen in most of it on either side of those brood, and then your nectar, and then your honey. Then I put the hive mat with the slot in it, and the slot is positioned towards the back of the cluster. And then on top of that, I put all my nectar frames more in the middle, and then going out we have the honey frames, and then on the top we just left frames that were empty. So the bees will go through the slot over winter, they'll go up and feed, and they'll also go and clean all the frames in the hive. So at the moment I've got 3 box colonies going through winter with the hive mat on top of box 1. And if you're doing oxalic acid vaporization, you only need to use 1/4 teaspoon in that situation, because that's enough to treat that whole brood colony. And then if you want to do that, you do it every fortnight through winter.
Awesome. And shout out to Phil, who's actually on the line, and Stephen.
Hi.
And Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
And what's Stephen's asked a question? Do you insulate or add anything to your box to counteract the cold weather? Well, we don't, do we?
Okay, well, in New Zealand, where we are, it's quite warm in our part of the world. Then we're going down to South Island, they are a lot colder. Some of them insulate, some of them don't. I personally, if we are getting lots of snow, I would try to put something in between the ground, so the ground and the hive itself. So maybe a polystyrene square, and that will stop any of the cold coming up. The hive itself, when you've got a colony, they're always vibrating and creating their own heat. Okay, but they also create a bit of moisture through that. So some people do still run mesh boards through winter and have an inspection board that can be placed in there, especially if they got varroa, so it's a way to check. So we don't actually insulate, we have our hives on stands 20 and 30 centimetres off the ground, which gives airflow underneath, so it keeps the woodware dry, because we use wooden boxes, wooden hive stands and wooden frames, so it's all wood, and that's how we set up our hives.
And it makes it easier to mow underneath them as well, doesn't it? Because we recently just mowed the lawn, so it's good. And Phil says howdy.
Howdy, Phil.
And Tony says thanks. Thanks, Tony.
Okay, and the question about insulating is that you might want to talk to local beekeepers who do what they do in your area, because they will be more able to give you more relevant to your local surroundings. Insulation is not something that we do. We've tried different things over the years, but I tell you what, keep it simple, so air can get underneath and that kind of thing.
And Boris from Germany just says that they don't bother insulating there, and they're a lot colder than we are, aren't they?
Oh yeah, you guys really have a lot of what is it, minus 40 degrees or something? So very cold. Canada, is it Canada?
Canada's really cold.
Yeah, really cold. So, you know, some people insulate, some people don't, because just remember, guys, that bees actually, their cluster keeps them warm. We just need to make sure the hive stays dry, really dry. So the cluster keeps themselves warm. We just got to give them the right surrounding. And too much space is something we've learned over time is just a problem for the bees. So that's why we've started using the hive mat with the slot, so we can control the space, so they don't have to manage it all at once.
Yeah, absolutely. Finn, yeah, there's a video with this Finn. Yep, there should be a video on YouTube. And welcome, Finn. And he says you notice lots of moisture in my hive. He's thinking it's from the ground. Are they on the ground, or are they on a stand, Finn? They shouldn't be on the ground, I don't think. So as we just discussed, eh?
So are you having it after a rain event? Maybe you need to get an A-frame type roof. We actually have some of our hives with A-frame roofs now, so that it draws the rain away from the hive. Whereas when you're looking at a square square one that fits straight on the hive. Sometimes that can have a rain that drips into the corners or down the corners of the hive. So you could benefit from getting a mesh bottom board, but then if you've got it really low to the ground, then that's not going to help because that will still get moisture in there. So I suggest that maybe you bring it up 20 or 30 centimetres so you get some airflow underneath the hive itself.
That's right, and we've got a message from Charlie Carter Johnson. He's a Westie. Is that from West Auckland? Hopefully, tell us where you're coming from.
Westie stylies.
Are we winning the battle against Varroa?
Sorry.
Am I too loud? Hello? Testing. Yeah, are we winning the battle against Varroa? I think we are. If we're treating properly, we are.
I think that here's what happens is that I'm managed the apiary on the majority of times. So what I'm finding is that our bees are coping better with Varroa, and this is after like 4 years of having earlier on really significant losses. So the last 2 winters I've managed to get the hives that survived into winter. They got through summer and then they got through autumn. Those ones actually, when they got through to winter, they were really good and we managed to get those through 100%. So we are noticing that because of the way we breed our genetics, we are getting success with the bees managing with Varroa. And this summer, what I have done, and probably not, because we like to field test stuff and then share it with the audience. So I have not treated as much over summer. And I am just organising now to do some more treatment. So there was 8 weeks where I did not treat the bees. And so the result of that is at the moment I've got one colony which was absolutely pumping has started to reduce in population, and they have got some deformed wing virus. And then we've got other hives which are in a different box as a long bench hive, and that's like having 3 Langstroths, next to each other, and they are absolutely pumping, and I haven't treated them for I'd say 10 weeks, and they are absolutely going mental. The hive is so full. So it's very fascinating to see, but I think we are getting there. It just takes a lot of time, and we only use oxalic acid vaporization or Api-Life-VAR, which is a thyme, camphor, menthol and eucalyptus oil infused in these little wafers. So that's 2 ways that we do it. Oxalic acid is my go-to, and I generally use that through winter and do that once a fortnight, but I've changed dosage because if you get a Varroa load, like I said earlier, it takes about 8 weeks for the colony really to recover. So you really want to be treating your bees, in the first month of autumn to get them through, if they've been sick, particularly, to get them into winter with some bees that are going to survive and without Varroa.
Yes, absolutely. And Catherine, who's from Otago, said, should she replace a brood box now or wait till spring? It depends on the temperature, but I'd probably do it now.
Well, what do you mean? Can you just clarify what you mean in terms of replacing a brood box?
I think she means it's maybe the wood's got a problem, or it's got cracked or something. Is that what you mean?
Oh, you mean actually the hive?
Actually the hardware.
Okay, yeah. I would suggest that you do replace it now, because if there's problems with it, if it's leaking or it's rotting, then it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, and you'll get problems with wasps attacking it if it's got holes in it and stuff. So I would do it now and not overwinter. Yeah. When it's a nice day, you probably can get away with doing it.
One of the things that I would like to say is that I like to replace woodware and everything when you're coming into spring, mainly because through spring and summer there's a lot of propolis and the ability for the bees to connect. Oh yeah, okay, we see that it's because the box is rotting.
I would
Les,
definitely do it
definitely do it now. The bees will start working. Whenever you put something new into a hive, they always propolize it, like they do a bacterial wash all over, and it also gives them the ability to make it waterproof and cover any draft things. So yeah, if it's rotting, I would suggest doing it now if you can. Yeah.
When we say now, we don't mean tonight.
No, don't
Tomorrow.
do it tonight.
Yeah. No. 'Cause don't work your bees at night.
That's a good point, Gary. Never work your bees at night. They hate it.
And Charlie's got back. He's from Henderson.
Henderson, I grew up there. Westie Stylies. I grew up in Henderson Valley, and we're in Waitakere now and just around the corner from Henderson Valley, and we love it.
Yeah.
It's our home.
I grew up in Henderson too.
I went to Orotia Primary.
Off Universal Drive. That's where I used to live. So what? Should we all treat at the same time? Yeah, that would help in the neighbourhood. This is Charlie as well. I think that's a good idea. But if you can try and get all the beekeepers to treat at the same time, you must be good at herding cats. So it's very difficult to do. But that would be a great idea if you can get everyone in the same area to do the treatments at the same time, because then you don't have other hives with lots of mites and they get reinfected with mites, or repopulated is not reinfected, is it?
Sorry, what was that?
About should everyone in the area treat at the same time, all the beekeepers?
I tell you what, man, we have got a lot of new beekeepers where we are, and the awesomeness about that is that a lot of them have been to my classes and are also, reading our newsletter. And so a lot of us are doing the same thing. A lot of us are doing oxalic acid. We've got robbing screens on. We've got our hives raised up off the ground. And this year, maybe that's why the hives have done better, because in our area, people are treating with oxalic acid. Maybe it's helping. I think that it would be awesome if everyone in New Zealand who had bees treated them at the same time, got everything done, started on the same date. That would be awesome.
Yep, and Charlie agrees. It says it would be ideal, but very difficult to organise. Yep, I think so.
Oh, you're welcome, Les. That's awesome. So, yeah, ultimately through in spring as you come into the season, but if it's rotting, yeah, now is a good time.
I got a message from Phil. Hi guys, considering installing a nuke into my empty hive in the next few weeks in May. East coast of Australia, or best to wait till spring? You haven't got the nuke, hey? You're going to buy it? Because I think I'd probably wait till spring, but I'm not sure about the east coast of Australia. Depends what the weather's like. It might be hotter. I would err on the side of spring.
So if you say you are thinking about doing this before the winter, my thoughts are that will you cope, because you guys are lucky you haven't got Varroa, so you may find that your temperature's warm enough. I'm not sure of your location temperatures. So I generally like to get new colonies when they're bred in spring, which is what a lot of people do. They'll order them over winter or at the end of the previous season, and then they will get them in spring, and they're usually, from our point of view, around October, November. If you are buying from a breeder, they can probably give you some advice, or a local bee club or something that may be able to give you a heads up on getting started. So it's very balanced on whether your local environment and everything will deal with that.
Yeah, I'd probably wait, Phil.
Oh, he says, I haven't got it. I can get it, but don't know what to do. Okay. here's my thoughts. Maybe order from that guy, do all your preparations, get all your gear done, and then get it in spring.
Yeah, because it's really easy to start a beehive in spring when there's a lot of nectar out there and a lot of pollination going, a lot of good stuff going on. But in winter, it's quite the hardest time for bees, and it's the hardest thing to get them through winter.
Yeah.
And also with the problems of the shutdown, it might be hard to get supplies and stuff like sugar and stuff if you need to feed them. I would wait.
We're actually talking to a guy called Ben from Ben's Bees in Aussie tomorrow, and we'll ask him about that and see what he says. So then we'll get a bit of information from him and see, what his views are. So
Yeah, we'll ask him. He's in Melbourne, so I'm not sure exactly where you are, Phil. I know you may have told us, but I've forgotten. So, but I'll ask him tomorrow night. We're talking to him.
he's going to hold off till spring.
Oh, good.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good move, Phil. Awesome.
Oh, and here's Rachel. Hi, Rachel. She installed one nuke 2 months ago, and it's only just managed to fill one brood box. Perth, Western Australia. Yeah, that's slow, eh?
That is very slow. So my suggestion would be that you may need to feed them.
Yeah. Has there been much?
Yeah.
Has there been much rain out there? Or has there been much nectar? I'd say not. And when you say fill them, it's just fill them with brood. What about the feed? What about the nectar and the honey?
Yeah, my thoughts are that if they haven't filled the box properly and you've got no honey sources there, I would suggest putting a feed together and try and put some sort of nutrients in with the sugar syrup, because sugar syrup isn't a very nutritious meal, but it will help them to get a boost of energy. So maybe put some pollen patties. I don't know if you guys do that there, or you could put some nutrients in with the sugar syrup when you cook it up.
Yeah. But the other thing is, Rachel, don't stand in front of the hive without a veil on, because we saw the photos. It's not a good look.
That was very graphic. So, I love it when we get our bees. When we first started, we do these things and yes, that's a learning. Every day's a school day when we started. Hey.
Every day's a school day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Rachel's got a long question. Maybe you could drop us an email with that then, if you like.
I'm happy if you just put a question in.
Oh, yeah, okay, put a question in.
Yeah.
Charlie got hit with wax moth. Only later I was told to scrape the wax comb or whatever before storing. If I do this, then I can assume that I don't need to wax up the frames before using them again. Yeah, when you're storing frames over winter, the best thing to do is to freeze them for 24 hours and then put them in a container that's sealed and no more wax moths can get in there. And they don't need much space to get in there, do they?
Yeah, I kind of look at the context of that. Are you saying that you got wax moth when you were storing the frames, or did you get them when you had bees in the hive? So my thoughts are that wax moth is actually a result of a hive getting weak. So what happened before you got the wax moth, if it's in a hive that's failing? The wax moth, in terms of storage, you really need to have them kind of airtight. You can freeze them, thaw them out, and then put them in an airtight container. You could put a cloth over it because they find it very hard to get through the cloth. So perhaps wrap them in some sort of cloth and then put them into a sealed container. Don't put moth balls in there or anything like that, which is a, pest treatment. That will not be good for your bees.
And in New Zealand, it's illegal because it's an insecticide and it damages the honey.
Yeah, I personally, if I got a really bad case of wax moth, I would, because we use wooden frames with wax foundation, I would just cut all the foundation off, leave the wire in, and then re-wax with a fresh sheet. If it's brood frames and they're really ruined, then I think you don't really want to put good after bad. even after freezing them, I still think there's a bit of, damage to the comb.
Yeah, but they won't a dead moth doesn't lay more eggs.
True.
True. Oh, yeah, when storing, not in the hive. Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, that's the best thing to do, Charlie. Okay, the other thing, Rachel says, put 1 litre of locally made formulated sugar syrup in a carousel Saturday, but how much feed and how long for going into winter? Well, I reckon it depends what your temperature's like, but we always aim for about 6 full frames of honey or nectar, don't we?
It's difficult, I think.
It's hard to say what the locally formulated sugar was made up of, but you really want to go 1-to-1 with by weight of water and weight of sugar. And there's a video on our YouTube channel about me making some a while back with that thing. So just the same amount of sugar to water weight this time of year.
Yeah, so your temperatures at night sound like they would be similar to us at the moment, but when we get to winter, we get around 8 degrees. So it's a little bit colder, but we don't get as many frosts. So, I think with managing how much they eat, you have to actually, I would personally put a top feeder on the top of the hive and then fill it with the sugar syrup and then mark how much where it was when you started, and then see whether it starts to go down. If it's emptying all the time, then they will get nectar in cells, which will be basically sugar syrup. So when they try to dehydrate it, I don't know what the quality will be there. But, some people put herbs inside, like we did that video on YouTube. We put thyme leaves in it. We also at some stage when we had a few issues, we added some human crushed vitamin C. So that actually did work really well, eh?
Yeah.
So bees supposedly make their own vitamin C, but maybe it was a boost they needed.
Yep, and Rachel's saying that Ceracell is a New Zealand top feeder. It's just a top feeder. Ceracell is the name of a company that we don't want to speak of because they're our competition. No, we're just kidding, Ceracell. And Rachel's also asking, does wormwood actually work as a natural warmth repellent? I don't even know what is that. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is, Rachel. Wormwood. Is that like a type of wood? Because I know Macrocarpa in New Zealand is it's good because insects can't burrow into it, like wax moths. But I'm not sure what wormwood is, sorry. I'll have to do some research about that. Charlie's saying you clean the frames off. That's good.
Yeah, I think you've done the right thing, Charlie, to clean them off. Then you could actually just re-wax them. Re-wax the plastic. Try and make it really even when you do it. Otherwise, you're going to get comb that's going to be uneven when they start to draw from it. But I think you've done exactly the right thing, and they sound like they're really clean. But now you need to put a layer of wax on it and making it really even. Maybe if you're storing them, do the re-waxing closer to when you're getting ready to put them in the hive, rather than do them now and then worry about them getting more wax moth or something.
Yeah. If anyone else in the chat room there knows an answer to what wormwood is and how it affects wax moths, sing out.
Yeah, it's Rachel saying it's a plant that is supposed to repel moths.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
I've never heard of that one.
No. Anyone else got an idea about?
Yeah, just sing out.
Wormwood.
And has anyone got any more questions? Because we'll move on to the next section if no one's got any more questions. Or just how's life going at the moment? Is it going good?
Are you having time to go out and see your bees while you're in your bubble? We have, and then suddenly we're getting a storm, and we've had a lot of rain today. So the hive that went crazy yesterday was a little bit crazy today. So I think the bees are orientating back. And yeah, hopefully tomorrow they'll be quieter again. So we hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that thyme is like the varroa don't like thyme oil, and some people have said that they use it if they see the hives get a bit of diarrhea or if they get chalk brood. So thyme is a very handy plant to have around.
Very handy indeed. I'll do some research about wormwood. The thing about plants is every country calls them something different.
Yeah, we might have a Kiwi common thing.
Oh, here we go. I'll do some research. We've found it in the...
Stephen's given us some advice, and he said that wormwood is in the drink absinthe green fare.
Oh, okay. Well, here's the... Wait a minute. Oh, no,
We've lost picture.
we've lost picture. Sorry about that.
So...
It's an Aussie zombie flick. Oh, wormwood.
Ah, okay.
Does it stop zombies? That's the question. I want to know.
So you don't want Walking Dead, really, when you use stuff in your hive. So
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the best cure for a wax moth, Rachel, is a strong hive, because they won't put up with it.
yeah, and I think that Phil, Charlie was saying about wax moth. So I don't know. I think wax moth. We've got two different types here where we are, and there's a really big one, and man, it can do some real damage. So it is tough for a weak hive to deal with that kind of, infestation. But generally, it's only a weak hive that they manage to really take hold of, or a hive that's died off.
Yeah.
And there's pollen available because they love going through the pollen.
I mean, it can't hurt putting it into a honey box over winter to see if it makes a difference. Yeah, I mean, what you could do is do one without it and one with it and see what the difference is. Then report back.
So Bjorn says, spring is starting here. All beekeepers need to be registered. And with proof of registration, you can move to your apiary away from your home. So busy here. Under the, in New Zealand, beekeeping is considered an essential service. And those who supply commercial beekeepers apparently are still functioning, and they do get permission to go to hives. We don't need a proof of that, but beekeepers are allowed to go and maintain their hives as long as they keep social distancing and they follow the rules that are recommended with not touching things that other people have touched.
Yeah.
So they are still allowed to maintain their hives through the COVID lockdown.
And Boris says spring isn't great, or is great, and cherry trees are blooming. Hives are getting huge. Corona isn't affecting the bees, luckily.
Well,
that's awesome.
While we're in this lockdown, you get time to think about stuff, which is very sad for Gary because he gets all that conversation. But I kind of think that Varroa for us has been, for the hard work for us beekeepers, especially if you want to be organic. If you consider that a bee, when it gets infected from the parasite, it gets a virus. And so we've had lots of loss of bees. In America, it's been huge amounts of bees that have been lost through the virus from, the parasitic mite Varroa. So I think the bees have been suffering with their own issues, and maybe if we'd locked them down, we might not have had the spread of Varroa. So maybe there's some learning in what we're doing as humans. that we can apply, but it's very hard to tell a bee not to go out.
No, and those robbing bees yesterday, they were not being 2 metres apart.
No social distancing. They were not queuing up politely.
They were quite angry. I got stung here. Anyway.
They did. It's just to let you know that they're still in charge. So
and Boris from Germany says that you've got an official letter from the ministry because pollination is essential in Germany. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's very important. And Boris is saying it's great. Spring is great and the cherry trees are blooming. Oh, that's wonderful. I love seeing them come out. The only flower that's blooming here at the moment are a few dandelions on the lawn. And we've also had the camellia bush, which starts to flower this time of the year. So the bees have been bringing in lots of big yellow pollen sacs, and that's awesome. So, and Rachel was saying that the guy at the local bee meeting said he uses a small branch of wormwood on top of his frames. Oh, that's good. So I guess once he stores them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Finn says this is great. Thanks, Finn. So we hope to find this is useful. And Beyond says, I agree, Margaret. I have 6 hives now, and they're in 4 locations, each 5 kilometres apart. That's good. Keep social distancing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, if we're selfish about looking after ourselves, we're actually serving the greater community. I think that's really important. When I went down to the dairy the other day, I had my mask on. I have a spray which deals with viruses and bacteria and a whole lot of things that it can do. So I sprayed my mask before the outside of my mask before I put it on, and I bought some paper towels and I sprayed them and I used them on the keypad because I didn't have gloves. And
did you spray the shopkeeper?
I was going to, but then I get in the car and then I spray all my shopping and just give it a big wipe down before I put it into the fridge. And yeah, and then I wear an extra layer of clothes. So when I get home, I take that layer off and it gets put aside away from everything else, and I leave it alone until the next trip, which is probably about a week away. So yeah, I'm not neurotic, but yes, I am.
A dairy is a local shop that sells like milk, and it's like what do you call it? What's it, like a convenience store?
Yeah, it's like a little supermarket, but in our local village down the road. And they are wonderful people there. And I only wore the mask for the 20-minute trip down there to get a few supplies. They only allowed one person into the shop at a time. And by the time I got back to the car, I was just like, I couldn't wait to get rid of that mask. And I really feel for the people who have to wear them for hours.
Oh, yeah.
Awful. So,
and Charlie's asking, is there much tooting around? I haven't heard of anyone, no. We haven't had any tests done, have we, this year, so.
No, we haven't heard of any cases of toot and risk, but this season, our summer, coming into before January, I think there would have been a lot of risk for it because so many things happened. We've been having droughts for such a long period of time across New Zealand, and you know we even ran out of water and had to use our spare tanks. So at the moment, we've got a bit of rain coming in.
Yeah, a lot of rain today, so it's good. And Rachel said the local bee shop sprayed my hands when I went to pick up some stuff. Yep, that's what happens. I offered to hose Margaret down when she got back from the shops, but she wasn't keen. No. Cold water, not good.
Ugh. Yeah, don't want to waste water. But yeah, it's quite frightening. I think it's good. We really have to look after ourselves, as I said. And yeah, a dairy is like a mini superette or whatever you want to call it. It's on our local
Yeah, like in England, they used to call them the corner store, even though they went on a corner. So it was funny. So if anyone got any more questions, otherwise we'll wrap up tonight. But I just want to see if everyone can comment about, did they think this was useful? Would they like it? And if you've got any improvements you can make besides having starting on time.
And sorry about the delay. And it's like a 4 square, said Stephen. So it is. They've got a lot of your things that you need, but sorry to say, it's always a little bit more expensive.
It really is.
Yeah. So any questions, guys? That's something that's come to mind. And it's really good to hear that Bjorn he's got 6 hives in 4 locations. I think that's a good idea. And we have some roving reporters that talk about having hives in different locations. And there are people who do that here in New Zealand as well, because some areas provide different types of honey. And also if one hive gets sick, you've got your apiary, which is away from that hive or those hives. So it's good in disease management, but you need to make sure that if you have hives in different locations and there is risk of spread of disease, you need to clean your gear and the bottom of your feet, because in New Zealand we have American foul brood or AFB, and if you're going from one apiary to another, you can easily spread it into your other apiary.
That's so true. Everyone seems to like it. That's good. Let's do it again. Okay, we'll try and do it again. I've got to convince Margaret to be involved, and we'll try and get a more reliable webcam.
Yeah, well, what happened was, guys, is that the webcam is just failed to charge up, so we were panicking and how are we going to do it. And it's good to talk with you all, because I love to hear from other countries, because we don't always have the same issues. And we hope that by sharing what we're doing, and you guys share what you do, we can all learn something new, eh?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I look forward to Rachel's next email.
Yes.
And Bjorn says he liked it. Nice to have a show with a bit of interaction. Yeah, that was good. It was really good. And Phil says, fantastic. Thanks, Heat. And thanks, Phil, Charlie, Bjorn, Rachel,
and
Stephen.
Finn's got cheers, Stephen. Finn's got a good question.
Liz.
How do you know if an apiary is registered to an AFB authorities? I think you need to you can give them a ring and they'll check, won't they? They can check that.
What we did when we were concerned about an apiary that we found is that we sent an anonymous, well, it was one of my friends who sent an anonymous letter to the afb.org.nz address, and they actually went to the location. So they won't give you information. You only know if there's hives in your area, and they will deal with the problem if there is a problem or you see a problem. So don't hesitate to report it, because it may be something that you're going to stop from happening, because the authorities who deal with issues like that can take some action for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Boris from, I think there's a Boris from Germany or Belgium. There's a couple of Borises, sorry guys.
Bjorn said that he has, per location, he has gloves and a hive tool. That's a really good idea. And I also have a spray that I spray my front of my suit and the soles of my feet. And I also spray my gloves and wipe them down with paper towels to stop any growth of anything, because AFB is a spore. So that's really good to have separate stuff, Bjorn. That's great.
Yeah, and Boris saying that Thomas Seeley also talks about spacing between hives and forest. Colonies are not concentrated in one spot as well. Yeah, absolutely, because apiaries are not natural to bees. They always are a lot further apart.
Yeah.
And just to note, Boris, there was a really amazing interview with Thomas Seeley. on the German podcast. So it was really good, wasn't it? It was about 5 hours long.
It was really long, but well worth it.
Well worth it. I really enjoyed that.
We've got a bit of time at the moment, haven't we?
That's true. We did mention it on a previous podcast. I'm trying to find it. But if you go to our website and there's a thing called Other Beekeeping Podcasts, and there's a one there from Germany, and I think it's about the episode about 3 episodes ago. And it's worth listening to, and it's also worth reading Thomas Selly's book. And it's really good.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, we were delayed in getting started, so everything's all good. And glad you participated. It was awesome.
Absolutely, and
Boris is in Germany.
Okay, let me just. What I can do is I can actually put this link on there.
Oh, Gary's going to put the link on.
Okay, that's the link, guys, to the German podcast that had the interview with Tom Seeley. He spoke at their club, and they recorded it. They recorded it.
Yeah, so it was in Germany. They transcribed it.
Yeah, but that Pacific one was in English, so it's good. I think they do a little bit of translation at the beginning, but it's an awesome show.
Cool bananas.
So if you want to add any more questions later, you can go to kiwi.bz/problem.
He said he listened to it.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, it was good, eh?
Awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Austria. Sorry. Yeah. I know. The host will tell me off now because I always get it wrong. Sorry. I know they're close, but not the same. Just like we're not close to Australia.
And as long as we don't say that you're Australian, then we really got it wrong.
That's the guy.
That's it.
I spoke to him. I had an email conversation with him. Yep.
Yeah, we've actually been really lucky to meet so many beekeepers from all around the world. And Gary has done a lot of work on interviewing and doing the podcasts. And at the moment, he's putting his energies into scrub cutting and lawn mowing, aren't you?
I am.
So that's what we do at the end of the season. We try to get everything tidied up before winter.
I've been cutting gorse down, so I've got lots of gorse on my fingers.
Yeah, it's very sharp and like lots of big prickles. But the bees like it at the moment because there's a bit of pollen.
Yeah, and Charlie there says, suggestion, why not have a special at every show to pay for you for your time? Well, that's true, but the shop's closed at the moment because of the shutdown. But absolutely, or you can support us on Patreon.
You could also make a one-off donation if you want to give us some financial support through PayPal, and that's pretty easy to do. And we're very grateful for all your support. So thank you. And
speaking of support, we have to do the jungle music now.
Yes, we have a few thank yous to say.
This is the favourite part of the show for everyone.
Okay, so who helped us in bringing this show to you?
Trish Stretton,
Rachel Stone,
Greg Parr,
from Parr's Products, parrs.co.nz,
and Lisa Morrissey.
Yay, Lisa!
I don't know if you could hear that, but anyway, let's stop dancing. We have to thank our amazing supporters, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. And these are people who just send us a regular amount through PayPal. Through Patreon, through the Patreon service. So thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, and the show notes for this will be, we might make this into a podcast. It'll be kiwi.bz/158.
And you're part of it.
You are part of it. And the video will be on YouTube. So any more questions? If not, we'll go and watch a movie. Or
maybe we'll watch a movie, have a nice cup of tea. And also thank you so much for coming and being here, and awesome.
Yes, absolutely fantastic, guys. All you guys turning up. It was awesome and great to see you. And
we have a special saying that we use quite a bit on this show.
On this show, yes.
Banana!
Is it the special saying?
Can they hear it?
Yeah.
Cool. So awesomeness bananas, guys, and be good, be happy, be safe.
And stay safe, guys. And Rachel's watching Life of Brian. We're going to watch. We're going to watch. It's a funny movie. Sad to hear that Tim Brooke Taylor died today. That was from the Goodies.
Yeah, goody goody gum yum or something.
Yeah, rest in peace, Tim. That's
Yeah,
bad.
Bill Oddie and them. They created quite a few laughs over the years. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're going to watch a movie called Daffodil. It's got a lot of it's a New Zealand movie, and it's got a lot of New Zealand music in it.
Which will be good.
Yeah, we like New Zealand music, don't we?
Yeah.
You know, Rachel's from Christchurch, so she should. You probably like that one, Rachel. It's got a lot of old stuff in it. You know.
Yeah. So Boris is saying banana, banana, banana.
Yeah, keep eating your bananas, Boris.
Yes, that's a B12.
You'll be okay.
And I've heard that if you put a banana skin in a beehive, it creates a lot of cleaning and grooming behaviour.
Yeah, apparently.
So
Well, yesterday when we were doing that robbing thing, there was a big lot of smell of banana in the air. Did you smell that?
that's called bee stings.
Yeah.
So the smell of banana is very similar to the scent of the alert for a bee sting.
And Charlie's just got a face there with a mask on. Absolutely.
That's right. Keep
Well,
safe.
Stay in your bubble, guys. And here's Snow. I'll get Snow to come and say hello. Come on.
Here she is. Hey, Poopy.
Come here.
She's our team morale officer, and she's been working very hard, haven't you?
Oh, there she is.
Keeping us safe.
We had to give her a bath today because she had a bit of an accident, but we won't tell about that.
Yeah. Okay, guys, fantastic. And thank you so much. It's been awesome spending time with you. And, yeah, we'll let you know when we do another one.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.